What's up and welcome back to the Kinda Funny Gamescast. Of course, I'm Tim Geddes and I'm joined by Blessing.
Good afternoon, Tim.
Andy.
Hello.
Greg.
Good afternoon, Tim.
And Michael. Hi. We got a full crew of boys today. How does it feel?
Love a full crew of boys.
Yeah.
I'm not saying anything. I'm not getting canceled.
I don't know.
Smells crazy in here.
Yeah. Michael, how you doing?
I was going to say I'm chilling, but I'm not. I'm very busy.
Yeah.
Lots of assignments. I was on KFGD not too long ago talking about how busy I was with various assignments for various websites. Still on that grind, but it's cool. It's like I said before, it's exciting to be got my hands in all kinds of places, doing all kinds of dope shit. And I'm here to talk about one of those things.
Which is?
Y'all already want to get into it?
Final Fantasy XVI. You got to play it. We wanted to have you here to talk all about it. We got questions for you. We're going to get into all that and so much more because, of course, this is the Kinda Funny Gamescast where each and every week we get together to talk about video games and all the things that we love about them. There's about to be 1 million reviews for video games over the next couple months. Previews of things, impressions of things, predictions of things. You know what the Kinda Funny Gamescast is. And if you didn't know, well, you should get familiar now by going to youtube.com/kindafunnygames or roosterteeth.com to watch the videos. If you want to get it as a podcast, search for Kinda Funny Gamescast on your favorite podcast service and we'll be right there for you. And if you wanted to get the show ad-free and watch it live as it's being recorded and get a whole bunch of bonus content like Kinda Feudy, like Remember Blank, like the Greg Ways that Greg does every single day, you got to go to patreon.com/kindafunny, just like our Patreon producer, Delaney Twining, has
Andy,
done.
we caught that fully. Don't
Thank
worry.
you.
It's just his phone's sitting there so ready to get pickpocketed. You know what I mean?
No.
And I'll show him what it's like to ride the Muni. All right, never let your guard. Hey, whoa!
If you don't have a buck to toss our way, that's totally cool. Whenever you're on the Epic Game Store, please use our promo code KindaFunny, and at no extra cost to you, we get some of that money. It's a win-win for everybody involved, but especially us, and we appreciate you for that. Little housekeeping for you. The Blessing Show. We've been hyping it up for a long time, and it is now out, the latest episode. Bless, you want to talk about it for a sec?
Oh, yeah. I talk all about black hair and video games. It's kind of a deep dive. We have multiple interviews. I get to talk to a game developer from Naughty Dog. I get to talk to Roger's partner, Leanza. It's one I highly recommend. Go check out that episode. It's a must-watch.
It's a must-watch. YouTube.com/KindaFunnyGames. It is an amazing 17-minute video. Get some popcorn ready and just have a good old time. You get entertained, you get educated. It's the best type of thing here at Kinda Funny.
Tracking on the way to beat this fucking guy.
All the way to
Don't
the top,
jinx it.
baby. Let's go. I
If
need
something
everybody
was going to beat
Knock on
Avengers,
wood.
I'm glad it's a topic this serious, this well produced, with this many interviews and graphics. Like he tried really hard.
Oh, yeah.
I stepped up and I was like, "Yo, this is stupid. I don't know why they're not doing this." And then they closed it.
and then they shut it down.
And then they shut it down. So here we are. This is the Kinda Funny Gamescast. I want to get right into it. Final Fantasy XVI. Michael, you went to New York City, all the way to New York to play this game. I am very, very jealous of you. I need to know everything. What'd you think?
Oh man! So a little bit of backstory. So Final Fantasy XVI is developed by Creative Business Unit 3. And if y'all know, Final Fantasy XIV is one of the greatest games of all time. Let's look at it. Scions of the Seven Dawn. If there's any group of people that I'm going to fight alongside, if I'm going to attack and dethrone God. Oh, damn, I was going to say deep throat God. hey, if y'all want to do that too.
You're so on brand.
You are ride or die. No matter what these people want to do to God, you'll be there.
That's none of my business. I ain't going to do that. But if you're down, you're down. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, each their own.
But yeah, Final
That's the
Fantasy.
hidden ending. Yeah.
Killing chaos.
Oh, God. I got a quick question. Did I demonetize y'all's video when I said shit at the beginning before?
Oh no, we curse all the time.
We don't care about
That's a good
monetizing
chance
here.
about
All
that.
right, all right. But yeah, so 16, back when it was revealed as State of Play in 2020, I was on a GameSpot stream and I fucking cried. I was in tears trying to talk to Tam and Lucy about what it felt like to see the name Creative Business Unit 3, which is a very dry name for the people who make Final Fantasy 14. Naoki Yoshida is the director and producer on 14, is the lead producer on 16. For me, when I saw that, I was like, oh my... That's my gang right there. These are my peoples, and they're doing the next big entry for the game. They're going to show anyone who doesn't play the MMO. They're going to show the world what they're made of and all their narrative chops and what they can do. So that's why I was so excited and so hyped back in the day.
Greg Miller, you have a question.
Michael, for people who don't know you and are stepping into it, how much Final Fantasy XIV would you say you've played?
If I were to type in /playtime into the chat log, it would probably be like, maybe like 268 days worth of playtime or some shit like that.
I like to say hours.
Most people measure in hours.
Yeah.
A lot of time idling, but hey, y'all do the math on that one. But yeah, Final Fantasy XIV, like quite literally in very real ways, has changed my life. So I'm very I got tons of love for that game.
You're one of the few people in the world whose job, title, your full-time job was covering Final Fantasy XIV.
Yeah. And then they cut me. They cut him like his butter, man.
Rest in peace, fanbite.
Yeah, they're still around.
Are they?
Yeah, that's fucked up. Shouts out to all my homies who are still there. But yeah, so playing 6, I've been looking forward to Final Fantasy 16. Every time there's a new trailer, every time there's new info, I'm on the edge of my seat, learning more about it.
I'm quite the night owl, and I know things are popping off when I see Michael Higham tweeting at 1 in the morning, being like, "Oh my god,
oh yeah,
fucking the Frost-maned fucking what's her face is now here, and it's Creative Business Unit 3 owned by Salesforce Tower."
Every few months, I'll hear "Let's go," and it's 2. I wake up, it's 2 a.m. and I was like, "Oh, I must see some Final Fantasy 14 shit going on."
Yep,
and I checked the next morning. Sure enough, there was a new update that dropped.
Yeah, I posted the meme of Squidward looking out the window. I was like, "Be careful, the Final Fantasy 14 news is happening. The freaks are outside."
Yeah. It's funny. I did an interview with the dev team also after the preview, and Naoki Yoshida was one of the people I was interviewing. I told him, like, "Yo, I'd be up at 3 a.m. watching your streams, bro," and he just thought it was really funny. So I let him know straight up. I was like, "Yo, I'm a real one," just to let y'all know. So yeah, I got to interview them. I got hands-on with about an hour and a half of the game. 2 separate sequences, kind of separate from the larger story context. I have some thoughts and feelings about what they're doing with the narrative, what they're doing with their darker tone, a more violent story. But from what I've seen so far, I have some impressions, but again, it is largely about the combat. This demo was to show people how this game plays. And I can get into all that, but I think the one thing I would tell people is that if you want to get ready for Final Fantasy 16, play DMC5. This is
wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
that is awesome.
That's a real shorthand way of kind of, there's a lot more going on than just it's DMC5 in the context of a Final Fantasy of an RPG. But the combat director Ryota Suzuki, who worked on DMC5
and Marvel's Capcom 2
and MVC2 Dragon's Dogma, he is the combat director for 16, and that DNA is straight up in here, and it felt right at home. I know I was not necessarily concerned, but I was just curious how they're going to fit action RPG into Final Fantasy. And once I got hands-on with it was like a perfect fit, man. Yeah, it's fast-moving. It's a stylish action game. If you've seen Bayonetta in action, if you've seen DMC in action, 16 plays similarly to that.
So I assume you played Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Yes.
Would you say this is more actiony than even FF7 Remake?
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. I think they do borrow some features and mechanics from other Final Fantasies. There's DNA of almost every modern Final Fantasy in some way in this game, like the stagger system is in here too, so it works similarly. You want to get bosses down to stagger, and then you could have that multiplier do way more damage. But the thing is, 7 is a lot more technical. It's a lot more slower pace. It's more methodical because you are subject to the ATB system and you have to make decisions about your whole party. In 16, you're only playing as Clive. You're playing a single, this is character action straight up. You have party members with you, but they're all AI controlled. So you are focused on controlling Clive. And
are you able to do give them potions or mess with their strategies at all? Do you see that?
So you have a puppy with you. His name is Torgal. If you can see him on the side, you can give him tactical preferences. Mm-hmm. So he will help heal. He will attack or defend, things like that. But otherwise, you are fully in control of Clive. You'll have party members such as Jill and Sidolphus. Sidolphus was part of this demo, and he's like your right hand man. He's your homie. He's got your back. But
are any of these characters or names do you recognize any of them from 14, or is there any left carryover from there?
Oh no, this is straight up.
Okay.
New ground. I mean, there's always a Sid. There's always a Sid in Final Fantasy. So your boy Sidolphus is the Sid here.
Oh,
yeah. So he's he'll be with you there. But
kind of like Patches.
In every Souls game. But yeah, this is. But so a little bit about where the depth of the combat comes from. So as Clive, like, oh, I'm just controlling one character. But you have icons, which are the summons. And icons, you swap with icons pressing L2. And in the demo, I had Garuda, Ifrit, and Titan. So pressing L2 just swaps between them, and it changes your moveset. So for example, if I have Garuda equipped, I hold R2, I press square or triangle, I'm going to do like an uppercut move or like a multi-hit combo. It's like a special ability. And at any moment, I can hit L2 again and switch to Ifrit, and I can start using his moves.
So it's
Then I
just
switch to
like
Titan.
DMC5, with
Yes.
switching between the different weapon sets.
So it's like switching between like Dante's stances or Nero's arms. So yeah, it just made sense. Like after 5 minutes of playing this game, I was like, okay, I get it. Like I know how I'm supposed to be doing this. So I was just experimenting with the different things and talking about Ryota Suzuki's kind of fighting game background, and obviously DMC, is that when I talked to him and interviewed him, there's going to be like a training mode that gives you like your command input data, and it's going to be very precise in that way. And beyond that, we already talked about endgame content, and I think this speaks to the depth of the character action that they're doing here, is that there's going to be a post-game mode that's going to grade you. As if it was
Wow.
and there's going to be leaderboards, and there's going to be like people trying to get high scores, and
This is the best thing you could ever say to me right now. I'm so excited.
it's fucking wild because before looking at it, it's like, okay, they're doing stylish action, but now they're trying to make Final Fantasy XVI more of a spectator's thing, because as much as we love the turn-based, the old school Final Fantasies, they mentioned streaming. They want people streaming this game. And there's a new mode called Ultimania mode, which is, they've said, I don't know if y'all played Dante Must Die on DMC5, which is like the hardest difficulty in that game, one of the hardest things ever in video games. They said that Ultimania mode is even harder than that. So they're trying to really push people to challenge themselves with their combat system. And I don't think they'd be bold enough to do that if they weren't confident in like building out depth in this character action combat system.
I mean, that all sounds insane. My question is then, where does the RPG come in terms of the character moveset involving that? Did you get a sense of 10 hours down the line, this is how my playstyle is going to differ from the first hour, or like 20 hours down the line?
So that's a good question, because our demo had things unlocked that you wouldn't have otherwise, like at that point in the story. So I don't know if I'm actually going to have the 3 summons in that story moment. I don't know if that's something that you're going to have to build up. I imagine that's going to be something you're going to have to build up to. I just don't know what that pacing looks like. But the RPG elements, you go into the skill trees and you have different abilities for Clive, like different types of parries, different kinds of attacks you can do with different button prompts and button combos. And then you have the different icons have different movesets that you can upgrade and attach and equip. Because I think you can only have 2 equipped at a time per icon. So if you hold R2, square and triangle are your 2 abilities that you can attach to them. And they have different abilities that you can mix and match. So that's where you kind of come up with, okay, what's my combo going to look like? What's going to be my bread and butter? How am I going to, like, if I'm fighting this type of enemy, I could do air juggles. What's my go-to combo there? If I fight someone who's armored and I have to stagger them, what's my moveset going to look like? What's my approach going to look like? So you customize the ways in which you equip your batch of icons. And yeah, I got to toy around with
like your loadouts.
Yeah, exactly. So you have like basically a loadout of special abilities for all your icons, and it's up to you to how you want to mix and match and upgrade those abilities. They start to have different effects. They can get stronger and things like that. And then there's also equipment like a standard RPG and EXP and all that other stuff. So pretty standard RPG stuff in terms of progression.
Do you see stats?
Yeah, but I don't know if I can't really get a good grasp of like how those things scale and how they affect the game, because it was just an hour demo. But yeah,
watching the early reveal trailers for it, there was like, it seemed like the UI has changed a lot from what we originally saw compared to this. Where I remember a couple trailers in, we saw the icon v icon fight, and it kind of looked like a fighting game with the health bars on the top.
Yeah,
it seems like that's just like the default combat screen now. Is that the case?
Yeah. Yep, that is the footage that y'all are seeing here is the latest footage, straight up B-roll from Square Enix themselves. So this is more or less close to the final game. Of course, as y'all should see, that they want us to mention that this is all subject to change. But
of course,
this feels like a complete game. So you bring up the icon versus icon battle. So so take a step back. The first part of this demo was going through this castle keep and reaching the top to fight Benedicta, who's like a main character. She's the one who wields Garuda. And I'm not sure what the story context is, but you fight her, and this part of the demo, you see her right there, and then you kind of get a sense of how fast and how intense these boss battles are. The second part was a separate story sequence where you fight Garuda, the icon, straight up herself. So it's like this tiny guy fighting this big godlike creature with like a windstorm going around you. It's pretty wild. It's pretty intense.
Right
Yeah, exactly right here. So you're fighting Garuda, the icon herself. This moment transitions to another part where Clive transforms into Ifrit. Like he just straight up transforms, like goes Super Saiyan mode, fucking turns into Ifrit, and then it's Ifrit versus Garuda. And I wasn't too how do I say it? I mean, visually and cinematically, it's super impressive. Like this game looks expensive, you know, straight up. And it also very much feels like a current gen game. Like this is a PS5 exclusive, and it feels like they're really using the PS5 to its maximum capabilities. But the icon versus icon fights they're all like bespoke set pieces. So this moment where you're controlling Ifrit, it's not going to be the same as the icon battle where you're going to control Phoenix, or if you're going to control Shiva or whoever it might be. They're all kind of their own thing. And I think I saw in a snippet from some gameplay that they showed beforehand, I think it's where you control Phoenix. It controls like a rail shooter, like a Panzer Dragoon Orta sort of deal.
Keeps getting better.
Yeah, I think that's the moment where they flex and like do these one-off kinds of things. This one wasn't too exciting from a gameplay perspective because you're controlling Ifrit, who's this heavy hulking tank who's like charging at Garuda, just like fucking throwing punches and shooting fireballs and stuff. So
See a lot of QTEs.
yeah, that's another thing to bring up. These kind of cinematic moments, these cinematic cuts, these scripted sequences that they act like phase transitions in these boss battles. They want to make sure you're paying attention. So they got the QTs. It's like smash square or press square at this certain moment, or press R1 to dodge or whatever like that. It's whatever. I'm not a big fan of QTEs in that sense. So right here, you're just like it's
Smashing square.
it's very violent. I'll tell you that much. But yeah, this is an example of these icon versus icon battles, which are just. Honestly, it's Square Enix trying to flex their technology. They're just like, look how fucking cool this shit.
That's the
can
thing,
look.
right? It looks
Yeah.
awesome. It looks like Godzilla. It looks like you know.
Yeah, it's like kaiju battles.
Yeah.
Bro, like,
How often do you expect to see something or to experience this sort of icon versus icon battle order where it is kind of an interactive cutscene?
okay. I don't know. I think they're beholden to pivotal moments in the story.
Gotcha.
So it's hard to tell, but I think there's gonna be a handful of them. I imagine that they wouldn't go to the lengths to trying things like this if it wasn't a one of the pillars of the game. And they want to kind of keep those things under wraps because like we asking questions out there.
Yeah.
We're like, what else y'all got in store for these icon battles? And like, oh, that's we don't really want to talk about that yet.
Please be excited.
Please be
100%.
excited. Drop that $70 to see what's up with it. But
So you're
yeah.
telling me that Clive turns into Ifrit. So you're this is Clive actually that's
Yeah.
fighting, and so you're saying you don't play as the other people. Did you see or hear about other icon battles where you would be playing as somebody else that isn't Clive as Ifrit?
I don't know. It's hard to tell. So his homeboy Sidolphus is actually they're called dominants. Ha ha ha. The people who can embody these icons and these summons are called dominants. So all the key characters are dominants. I don't know how they will kind of interact with each other. I don't know what the context is for Clive being able to wield all these different summons. So it's hard to tell right now. But I know Sidolphus, he's the dominant for Ramu, so the god of lightning, and Benedicta, who's the one you're fighting. She's the one who controls Garuda. I think Ifrit is the first one that Clive gets control of. And I know from the story context, if I recall correctly, his brother, which is at the beginning of the game, turns into Phoenix, and that's kind of like the turning point for the story, where it's like, okay, this is people transforming into these icons are sort of this big deal. They're walking weapons of mass destruction in this war-torn world. So that's kind of where that tension comes from. I want to see more. I want to know how like Benedicta talks to Clive and calls him the branded one or whatever. And I think that has to do with like him being able to control multiple icons at the same time. So all that stuff is still a very big mystery. And it's definitely one of the things that I want to uncover as I play more.
My question is for you as somebody who's a big Final Fantasy fan, and like,
Yeah.
of course, there's been a lot of different iterations of what combat looks like in Final Fantasy, right? Like we've had so many turn-based Final Fantasies. Final Fantasy 15 looked like it shifted more into the action era, right? I know you are maybe the biggest Stranger of Paradise fan that I know.
That's right.
And Stranger of Paradise is just straight up like a Neo type, almost Souls-like character action game. Does Final Fantasy 16 seem like the right step for a mainline Final Fantasy in terms of the shifts that it's making in its combat?
Gameplay wise, yes, I think so. At first, like when I talked to the development team, the overall sense is that they want to create something that is going to attract modern gamers. Like as much as, like I said, as much as we love the turn-based stuff, that doesn't have as wide appeal as a flashy character action game like this. Like you could show this gameplay to someone else who has no context for whatever Final Fantasy is, and they're like, "Oh shit, that looks dope. I wonder what that is." If you show me turn-based combat, I'm like, hell yeah, let's fucking go. But if you show a lot of like 10 people turn-based combat, they'll probably look at it and be like, okay, yeah, whatever. That's
I fall asleep, dude.
damn. I hate to see it, but yeah, and then, so they wanted to create something that is going to be attractive to. I mean, they say a younger audience, but I also think that they mean just like a more
Wider audience.
yeah, just a wider, more mainstream audience where, they're not gonna,
This looks awesome.
Yeah, this looks like everything you've said about the combat appeals to me so much. Like when we look and we see the health bars that look like a fighting game, the way you compare it to Devil May Cry 5, the way like you talk about like there's a mode where they will literally grade your combat sections. That speaks to everything I love about like a game like Devil May Cry or any game that has fun combat systems. And funny enough, it reminds me of when we first saw or when we first heard about Stranger Paradise, because there was the leak before Stranger Paradise was revealed, and then there was the reveal where like a lot of people were like, "Ooh, I don't know about this one." Yeah. But in that leak, they talked about it being more of a, hey, this Team Ninja doing something that's more Souls-like. And I remember reading that and being like, this sounds incredible. A Final Fantasy that's also a Souls-like. That sounds like that sounds like the next step.
Bro, it's so weird because you mentioned Stranger of Paradise like 5 minutes ago at this point, and like you mentioning it right now is like, oh, it is a Final Fantasy game. I kind of forgot about it. I played through that whole thing, and it was an experience. Michael, do you have any sense of what is going on with all of the different houses? Like, did you get sort of any glimpse at what all the different factions are? How does the voice acting seem?
Oh, okay, a little bit, yeah. So the broad setup is that in this world, Valisthea, there's a war over resources. So I think there's 6 mother crystals, and it's funny when I talked to Naoki Yoshida about it. He said he likened the mother crystals as like oil rigs or oil fields. Like these are kind of what the world relies upon for their energy. Just their way of life kind of revolves around these mother crystals.
And these are the ones we saw in the trailer where like the cities are kind of built around them.
Yeah. And then and I asked him like, okay, give me more of the story context. And he's like, what happens when those resources start to be depleted? And people are running low on that stuff, and people get antsy, and then war breaks out, and they're fighting over these very limited resources around the world, and showing kind of the desperation, the darkness of humanity when those things happen. And then also having like these weapons of mass destruction, like the dominants and the icons, and kind of all hell breaks loose on that stuff. So they have these different regions and different factions, these different cities and states, and they all touch upon like different types of civilizations that we've seen in history. Like there is a theocracy, there is a republic that has like different political structure. There's like a traditional like royal kingdom and shit like that. So I think, again, the demo didn't really have much story context, but I think part of it is that, they've said that this is a game that revolves around like those larger political themes. So the way those nations are going to interact with each other, and how Clive is going to interact with the rest of these characters, because he does have to come in contact with them. That's one of the bigger mysteries, but that's one of the more fascinating parts. The thing is that, so I wrote this in my preview, is that I kind of expect and always come to Final Fantasy for a balance between the whimsical and the like evocative emotional storytelling. The thing that I'm gathering from my time with 16 and from everything that we've seen up to this point is that it takes itself very seriously. And I don't know how I feel about that quite yet. Like this game is so self-serious. Everything is dark. Everyone's pissed. Like the only emotion anyone knows is anger so far. That's all we've seen. Let's go. Let's go.
fucking go.
Hardcore, yeah.
And by their own admission, like the dev team has said that they want to be like Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
It did, in your limited experience, is it?
yeah, kind of. Yeah, it's very apparent that is the tone that they're going for. So yeah,
Like
if that's your thing.
That's what, like the whimsical kind of turns me off sometimes. The fantasy elements of a Final Fantasy, right? So the idea of them doing like we're doing this Game of Thrones story, and we're setting it there is a win for me. What I've seen action wise and being just from one character's perspective is big for me. My question would be for Clive. Obviously, the main character they're building out. What are you seeing in terms, or if anything, in terms of customization? Like, are you equipping different armor and seeing that represented? Are you picking stuff like that, or is it not that? Is it just?
No, I don't know yet. There wasn't really much equipment customization there quite yet. From what I've seen, most of that customization comes from how you upgrade and set your icon abilities. One thing on that point, though, there is, I guess I should mention that there's. What do they call? There's 6 rings, which are accessories that you can equip, and they work as assists. So this was their way of kind of leveling the playing field in case you want assistance with any. If it's too difficult for you, you can equip only 2 rings max, but you can have a ring that says you'll have a prompt that gives you like 2 seconds to evade, to do a perfect dodge, whatever. They'll have one where you can just smash the square button and it'll do like some wild combo
combos.
it'll auto combo for you. So if you're not into action games, like they've said we're concerned about, what if the traditional Final Fantasy players, maybe they come into this not wanting to play an action game. Well, we have some assistance for you. Like
That's awesome.
Yeah, you can just smash square and you'll do cool wild shit.
And see, that's back to me where it's like I don't like action games, but I like action RPGs.
Okay, yeah.
So the idea that like, all right, cool, I can do the Bayonetta stuff if I just tap square, but I can then worry about my stats and polishing off me this way.
So there's different ways, and they have one that will auto dodge for you as well, and they'll have one that automatically initiates potions if you get low on health, so you don't have to worry about that.
Gotcha.
So there are different ways that equipment kind of customizes the player's experience. If you're gonna deck out Cloud, wow. If you want to get a Clive in a swimsuit bikini, I don't know if you could do that, but that is a JRPG tradition.
Get that
There's
eventually.
the first miss. There's the first.
Well, I want to talk about Clive. That's his name, Clive, a little bit, because I'm the type of guy that likes calling guys my boy. So I want to say my boy Clive. I don't want to say my boy Clive.
I don't know.
I don't
if
want
it's
to
my boy.
say
I don't know if it's my boy.
Whoa.
He doesn't like the name.
This guy, the name
It's not for
sucks.
him,
Doesn't
Clive.
look cool. Everything about
Tell that to Clive
I'm
Barker.
so excited for everything you're talking about gameplay wise.
yeah.
I'm excited this is from the team
Good one, Greg.
members of the team of Final Fantasy XIV.
Yeah.
I know how much people love that. Them taking it seriously, I'm kind of here for it if it lands and that team's behind it. But there's just something about looking at these characters. I'm like, I don't like you. And am I wrong?
You're not wrong, because I feel the same way. I feel the same way that everyone is very angry, and it really feels like they have, like, they're there to throw hands. They're not there to make friends. But that is
Cool though.
that is one of the things I did.
Did y'all want to fucking play as a guy who killed Chaos? Like, let it go.
He had
but,
friends.
Hey, if you finish Stranger of Paradise, you will know that game is actually about the power of friendship. Let me tell you something. But I don't know if there's going to be is there power of friendship in Final Fantasy 16? I don't know. That's like one of my favorite themes in any JRPG, any anime. I'm not sure if this is going to have it in like that overarching theme here. But I did ask the dev team about that. I said, I'm looking at this, and I come to Final Fantasy for that whimsical side as well. I love cutesy bullshit alongside the dark stories that we know and love from Final Fantasy. Is that going to be in there? And so he mentioned that, Naoki Yoshida mentioned that this is, by his words, this is also, as dark as it is also a story about hope. And we talked about Endwalker because I'm a big 14 player. And he's like, yeah, you played Endwalker. This is a different style of story, but it's still going to try to hit those same notes that you kind of expect from a Final Fantasy. And there's going to be moments, he at least mentioned, I didn't see it in the demo, but he said that there's going to be moments of warmth where there's like character-driven dialogue and side story quests. We're going to learn more about these characters and see a warmer side of them. So I'm hoping that kind of fills the void of what I'm looking for from a Final Fantasy, that Clive isn't just this dude I control to beat the shit out of everyone.
Sure.
I want to know him. I want to know who he is, like his companions. Like Jill seems like a really interesting character. If you see, she's like the girl with the gray hair who fights alongside him sometimes. I want to hang out with my boy Torgal. I want to like give him pets and take him out on walks and things like that. And I want to know about Sid. Like that dude is hot as hell. Like that dude fine as hell. Like. But I want to know more about him.
On the opposite,
I want to keep talking about Final Fantasy 16, but before we do that, let me tell you about our sponsors. Shout out to HelloFresh for sponsoring this episode. Remember those New Year's goals you promised yourself that you'd stick to? Well, HelloFresh is here to help you eat better by delivering fresh ingredients and easy recipes right to your door, taking the hassle out of dinner time. Fast and fresh recipes, HelloFresh's latest line of meals featuring robust flavors and filling portions are ready in less than 15 minutes, so you can enjoy taste and quality done quick with recipes like falafel power bowls, seared steak and potatoes with béarnaise sauce, or Southwest pork and bean burritos. A ton of us here at Kinda Funny have been using HelloFresh for years. Kevin loves how easy it is to get Paula vegetarian options, while I just love how quick the fast and fresh recipes come together during a hectic day in the studio. Go to HelloFresh.com/KindaFunny65 and use code KindaFunny65 for 65% off plus free shipping. That's HelloFresh.com/KindaFunny65 and use code KindaFunny65 for 65% off plus free shipping. HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit.
The newest episode of my video essay series, The Blessing Show, is out right now on youtube.com/KindaFunnyGames, and it's all about black hair in video games.
Black representation is complex compared to alien frogmen. I'm sure it's way easier to conceptualize this than a fade. Elden Ring is the highest selling new IP in years, and I guarantee you, From Software and Bandai Namco understands that their audience extends internationally. When given the option to create a black character, I would like to create a version of myself that doesn't look like if Lil Nas X sang lead for Fall Out Boy. For many, I'm sure this seems like a very minuscule and specific thing to complain about. There's plenty of noteworthy areas of improvement the games industry can still make, even in just the area of representation and inclusion. So why is black hair one to harp on? Well, for folks who just listen to me on podcasts and have never seen a Kinda Funny video before, surprise, I'm black.
Check it out over on youtube.com/KindaFunnyGames.
Go for it, Bless.
So on the opposite side, how's the drama, right? Like, you say the whimsy isn't there as much. Cutscene to cutscene, were you enthralled with what was going on? Did the political aspects of these different nations stand out to you as something that you're interested in?
Not quite yet. I mean, I'm watching these cutscenes as I'm playing. Like, I don't know what the fuck y'all are talking about right now. So yeah,
is that because they put you later in the demo, or
kind of? Yeah, but the thing I also mentioned in my preview is that the character interactions they seem cold, and I think that that's intentional. But it's so far it feels a little one note, and some of the dialogue that they're having, I don't really get a sense of the world. I don't get a sense of who they are, because I think in a lot of RPGs, the quirks and just the way characters speak to each other kind of says a lot about their personalities. But I can't really gather anything from their personalities quite yet, other than they're just angry and want to fuck shit up. So it's hard to get a gauge of those things.
Jack in Stranger Paradise, I was groaning,
yeah, that's my guy. Though. That's my guy. Don't talk shit about Jack.
You already touched on this a little bit, but one of my favorite things of games in the last couple of years has been the writing and delivery of lines in Final Fantasy VII Remake, where I just thought they just really hit a good tone of it being a interesting story with interesting characters that felt real, felt whimsy, cool,
very human, right?
Human and like also fun. But also the story was like simple enough to follow, and I thought the remake did a really good, for the most part. There's obviously some weird shit, but like the plot of Final Fantasy VII Remake, I thought they did a really good job adapting the original game into that. And I was like, man, Final Fantasy has hit a new kind of standard for what I expect from the story of it. Final Fantasy XIV, obviously, a much more expansive thing that's been going on for a long time. Do you think that, like, besides it being dark and all that stuff, like, do you think that this game has the potential to have a story that you'll eventually be like, that is an all-timer? Or are you like, there's enough here already that I'm seeing that I think it's too much?
I think I'm a little bit more on the skeptical side right now, and I don't necessarily want to make that like an indication, like, oh, based on my demos, like, oh man, the story's trash. Like, no, that's not what I'm saying.
That's what I'm gonna say though on Twitter. That's what I'm gonna quote you as on Twitter.
Damn, y'all gonna cut that and tweet it out. Man, that's the last time I do anything with Square Enix. Wait, hold up. What was your question again? Damn, my bad.
Just
Story, is it going to be
but
an
the plot.
all-timer? Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. I think it has the potential because two things is that I trust this dev team. Mahiro-san, who was one of the dudes who helped rebuild Final Fantasy XIV with A Realm Reborn and Heavensward, and like word on the street is that a lot of the Heavensward team is on 16 as well. And that, if you played through that expansion, you will know that that is really where they found like their narrative foundation. They really found a way to tell a story in an MMORPG. All that stuff clicked, and that is a really difficult thing to do. Like no other MMORPG, I'm gonna say it, no other MMORPG even comes close to telling the same level of story as 14. So I trust them because they've done it before and they've done the impossible in a way. At least to me, that's what it seems like. And I think the setup has potential for a lot of interesting political drama. I don't know what they're trying to go with it. If it's just like these are just pieces that we shift around for this big bombastic drama, or if there's going to be a larger message, or if there are going to be things to pluck out about like philosophical things that we can look at and study or ponder about. Like when I put down this game, I don't want to just be like, yo, I fucking kicked ass and I'm on the top of the leaderboards on the hardest difficulty. I want to have things that are thought provoking. So everything I'm hearing about the setup seems to have the potential to do that. Now, if whether or not they're able to, those pieces are able to click into place with the character driven moments, like that's the thing that I'm most concerned about. Like, are these characters equipped? Are these characters written? Are these characters going to have personalities and interact with each other in a way that speaks to the rest of that world? Because you can have interesting relationships between the different nations, but at the end of the day, it's the characters who drive those themes and those big storytelling moments. So, again, I'm not saying that I'm not down on it. I'm just skeptical, and that's the thing that I'm going to be paying attention to most when I get hands-on with this game. So I'm already convinced with the combat. Like, at first, I was going to this like, damn, I really want to know how it plays. An hour in, I'm like, listen, I know exactly how this plays. I cannot wait to jump back into it and just play this game. So now that big question is, can 16 live up to the rest of the franchise's storytelling chops? And again, I believe that they can. It seems like there's pieces in place. I just got to see it. I got to see the full picture, because there are some games that you don't. Stranger Paradise is one of them. Like on a smaller scale, but the pieces of that game don't necessarily click until you get to the very end. So it's hard to judge a game. Even if I had 5 hours with 16 or even 10 hours, I still wouldn't be able to necessarily judge, I don't think, how it makes all those pieces click into place. So, yeah, man.
And so you mentioned this is its own standalone story.
Yeah.
Like, Tim, do you think they put Jesse from Final Fantasy VII Remake in
Sorry, Andy, it's doubtful.
You really
real doubtful on this one. But
Actually, a question that's actually kind of related to that, like Final Fantasy VII.
What about Tifa?
Tifa
mods.
Is there errors?
Let's go.
How's the errors doing? Final Fantasy VII, has lived on for what? How many years? 20 years? 25 years? 30 years?
5 years.
Yeah, like that is
6 years.
that is a game that has a legacy that has lived on.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy XIV came out close to over a decade ago, and
Yeah.
that's another one that's lived on since then. Playing Final Fantasy XVI, I know you only got a couple of hours with it. Does it feel like something that is going to span a franchise out of this one entry? Does it feel like one of those ones, or like it could be one of those ones?
It seems ambitious enough. Like when I think about the extent to which they're trying to build out this world, and it being the 14 team, they've done that where they have continuous stories, and I think it's a fair question, because you look at something like Final Fantasy 13, which there's mixed feelings about.
Yeah,
That got a trilogy.
13 Lightning
trilogy,
Returns.
So that thing got a whole trilogy. Final Fantasy 15 had multiple episodes. Ended up getting cut short, unfortunately.
and a movie and a TV show.
so,
and
And Dissidia, whatever that was.
There's like a lot of extended media for each piece of that universe. So in a way, like, again, like I said, this game is impressive and it looks expensive. I feel like they would be remiss, at least judging from now, they would be remiss to not keep building upon that. Even if it's like another Final Fantasy, like Final Fantasy 17 uses that similar foundation. Like it really seems like they put a lot of work and a lot of resources into building this thing. I wouldn't be surprised if they kept continuing, like building out this specific universe, or at least using this as a foundation for the franchise in the future.
Am I right in assuming that Final Fantasy 16 is your most anticipated game of the year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Having played this, is that still the case?
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
shit.
But for different reasons now. Like I said, it's before I was kind of like, I'm not sure about the gameplay, but I trust their storytelling. Now it's flipped where I'm like, where are they going with this story? But goddamn, does this game feel good to play? So it's still my most anticipated game, and it's just a fascinating project from Square Enix. So one of the questions that I asked was about how the story was constructed, and I think this speaks to what they're going for about trying to be a Western style fantasy and trying to be a Western game. Is that this game was written in both Japanese and English simultaneously. So yeah, traditionally with Japanese games, the story is written in Japanese, is then localized by 4 different languages and like English studio, and that's how we get those games in the West. And I've over the years I've talked to a lot of localization teams about how they do it, specifically like Sega and Ryuga Gotoku Studios with this Yakuza franchise, and the ways in which they're able to make those games speak to a foreign audience. So talking to Koji Fox, who's the localization director, he straight up said, we wanted to make a Western style fantasy game, so we wrote this thing in English and Japanese simultaneously, and they recorded the English voice acting first, and they had they had English or they say foreign to them foreign motion capture artists like to act out these scenes, the mannerisms, the way they speak, the lip syncing is all English first, and that's unheard of for a Final Fantasy game.
Did you notice that?
Yeah. It really feels like it. Similar to they weren't afraid to name drop God of War. They've mentioned that they want something that's similarly structured as
the developers.
Yeah,
I thought in the game.
No. Yeah, Kratos is one of them. Kratos is an icon. I can summon that motherfucker. Let's go.
I just imagine like Michael Higham watching, being like, "I think these are American mocap actions," and one guy's like, "Hey, pizza pie." he does the Italian hands.
There might be a whole nation full of Italians. I don't know, man. That would be sick, man. There's like I think the theocracy in this world is like French or some shit. I don't know, and then there's like everyone's got English accents or whatever. So I don't know. Maybe it's just like a distillation of Europe. I mean, but without any brown people, unfortunately. I hate to see it.
Did you get to ask about that?
I did.
Oh no!
They were like, to be historically accurate.
You were worried about not going to a Square Enix event. You're already done, bro.
I would say that there isn't necessarily anything new from there, and I think Naoki Yoshida has said that we recognize the criticism, we've seen it, and he's very open, and as someone who's followed his work through the years, I'm up watching this dude at 3 a.m. watching live letter from the producer, so I know how much thought and care he puts into those sorts of things. I'm not caping for him. Some of the things that he said, but at least in context, he looked at that and he said, "Damn. All right,
you're right.
Yeah, you're right." And then he started to speak to we want people to play through all of 16 and then see what the world we built and see that there is diversity in the different cultures that we have in the game. I'm like, all right, cool. I mean, that's as much as they've said before. So that's kind of just what we got to roll with. And then my hope is that they at least take that feedback and those criticisms, and at least hopefully it influences them in their future projects, things like that, because that's kind of how 14 was built. That game is always built on player feedback, and if anyone's going to be receptive to that stuff, Naoki Yoshida is going to be someone who can at least he's not going to ignore those things, or at least I don't think he would. But yeah, they basically said like, we got a lot of diversity in 14, which is true to an extent, and they're like, yeah, in 16.
At least he didn't drop in. At least he didn't drop in. It is what it is.
He says like, listen, brother, I don't know what to tell you. It is what it is. That's not what he said. That's not his attitude. But I was like, oh, damn. We'll see. See what it is. I don't know if we're gonna. Damn, I want to see some Filipinos in there. I want to be out here. At least make us merchants or fishers out there. My ancestors was out there selling fish and shit. No, it's damn, that's funny. But
so has your excitement gone up or down since the preview?
It's same. But it's about the same.
Okay.
It's about the same. Now I'm just eager
Give it to me.
Yeah, give it to me. I think I know as much as I need to know. Like, of course, I have a ton of questions. I'm sure y'all are like eager to like figure out like different things within this game. But now I'm at the point where it's just like, all right, I know what this is. Give it to me. Yo.
How's the soundtrack?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just about to ask.
You mentioned that. So Masayoshi Soken is probably, I would say today, the best composer. Today, that dude, if you play Final Fantasy XIV, you will know how much love and care is in the music that he creates for 14. In 14, music is a part of its storytelling. Like those things are inseparable. When I talk about Persona, I talk about how those songs also are part of the storytelling. 14, very much so. Like some of those boss battles have the best songs, period. Not just in games, like period. In all of music. Like,
Hell yeah.
Yeah, in straight up in composition because of the way that how involved Masayoshi Soken is in the creative process of the stories that are told in 14, where he's in tune with what's happening in these cutscenes. Knows how to, like, he's the sound director. He knows when to play the songs at the right moments, how to capture the feeling of a boss battle in the context of its story. So here, it's a little bit more wild and crazy because like it's an action game, so I'm just like worried about dodging and getting in hits and shit like that. But I was paying attention to the soundtrack. So I feel like you could take everything I've heard from 16. I could take all that and put it in Final Fantasy 14, and I don't think I would notice like much of a difference. And that's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's a good thing because like yes, dude, just do your thing. Flex on them. Like let everyone know who doesn't play 14. Let them know what you're capable of. And like there's before the big Garuda fight that we saw earlier with the storm going on, there's really like chill overworld. Like it seems like a Final Fantasy 14 overworld theme that has like a backbeat, like a lo-fi backbeat with, and you can hear the Final Fantasy Pregio. You can hear that theme in the background, and it's like this very mysterious vibe that really builds up into that boss battle. And then when you get into the boss battles, you have the choirs fucking singing, and you have the orchestral strings just rising up, and it really feeds into the drama of that moment. And it's catchy too. It's not just, a lot of orchestral soundtracks are like, they're beautiful and they're well done, they capture the moment, but I don't necessarily would think of them as particularly memorable in that way. These songs, at least to me, like when I was done, those melodies were in my head. Like I was humming them the next morning, and I couldn't, like, earworms, man. Like that's the thing that Final Fantasy and like a lot of Japanese games do. They create these melodies that you just can't get out of your head that really capture those moments, and 16 has that. Damn, man,
You're getting me hyped, man. This is so good.
This has jumped like way up on my anticipated games list.
Man, like fuck, Soken is so good, man. Like even his like what you think as like the normal mid tracks of the soundtrack are still like phenomenal, man. Like damn, I want to get the soundtrack alone, just listen to that. And I think that's like one of the moments that got me hyped up from the first trailer. Like I heard it and I was like, this sounds like it's straight out of Heaven's Word. Like it sounds so familiar, and it felt like so familiar to me that like it struck a chord with me. Like, oh, I remember how I felt when I finished Heaven's Word and the emotional highs of that story. That was communicated in the soundtrack of 16 because it captures that similar vibe. And man, I can't wait for y'all to hear this music.
That's
anything else.
That second trailer was the one for me where it was like the prologue music and it turned into like the epic choir stuff, and they were saying the summons names. I'm like, this is so sick, man.
Oh man, yep. That is, and if if you want more of that, let me tell you about Final Fantasy 14. Yeah. So
any closing words on your preview for Final Fantasy 16?
Yeah, I think I asked about how this game is structured. I think a lot of people might be curious about that. So it again, they name drop God of War, where you have this hideout, which acts as a hub, and then you go out into the different regions of the world. So they've said that this is not an open world game, not like Final Fantasy 15, where it's like, I'm going to go to town, take conquests, get in my car, drive around or whatever. So you have like the central hub, like kind of what is it in Midgar and God of War, where it connects you to the rest of the world. So that's kind of how this game is structured as well. You're going to venture off into different regions. It seems like it's going to be seamless, but not necessarily open world. So now when I think about that, I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. You're still going to have a level of exploration in that world. It's not like a Monster Hunter where you just like queue into like a zone or whatever, but it's, this big world that is structured like the modern God of War games. So there's that. And yeah, there's going to be tons of side quests. They talked about some of that stuff, but we'll see all that when the game comes out. It's getting into too much of the nitty gritty that I can't necessarily speak to because I didn't get hands on with it. Just ask them in interviews. But
we getting an early demo?
I don't know. That's a good ass question, man. Like, this thing did say trial demo. Like when I boot up the screen, it says trial demo. I was like, oh, are y'all
They
gonna
usually do, right? Like we got a Strangers of Paradise, Final Fantasy 15.
Square
had a
Enix,
couple
Square
bigger
Enix
ones.
always does. It seems a little early because this game is coming in June.
Spoken. There you go.
They usually do those things like a month before release, and like, okay, we'll carry over your progress, or at least give you a good chunk of the game. So I feel like they would. I feel like maybe they should because I want to see what people think of this combat system. It's really fucking cool. Yeah.
Well, hell yeah, man. Thank you for that.
Damn.
Before we leave, though, I wanted to talk about some other games. Do you guys? I know you've been a little quiet, Andy. Is there any game you want to talk about, or do you just want to have us talk about Metroid Prime Remastered? Because we can do that.
I want to hear you talk about Hi-Fi Rush.
Oh, okay. Well, let's talk about Hi-Fi Rush real quick because I beat it this weekend. I've been slow playing a little bit, kind of playing chapter by chapter whenever I had a free night. And I've said this a couple times now, but I can now say it definitively now that I've beaten the game. It just gets better. Like I feel like every single chapter adds, and it just like improves the experience, which already starts great, and it just ends amazing. Like it reminds me of Celeste in that way. I was talking to Andy about this. Of as you play through Celeste, again, starts out amazing, and all the abilities you have are so much fun. But as they give you new abilities and the pacing at which they do, it just gets more and more fun. And by the end of it, your fingers are going wild and you're like, well, I can't believe I'm accomplishing what I am now compared to where I was in the beginning of the game. But on top of that, it feels like the level design has to be even more intricate and the puzzles are that much more turned up. And I feel like Hi-Fi Rush takes that and just applies it to a super awesome rhythm action game that like it only gets better as an action game and as a rhythm game the further you get into it. And that is always one of my favorite things of with a rhythm game is I remember playing Guitar Hero for the first time and we all had that moment of like, okay, cool, we can't do this. Okay, cool, we can do this. I can't imagine doing all 5 of the buttons and then all of a sudden one day your pinky slides down, slides in there, and you're just like, cool.
Hey, yo.
I've unlocked something here. You know what I mean?
Hey, yo.
And it's like, boom, then you can do that. And it's just like playing through the different songs they give you. It allows you to feel like a badass. And I think that there are so many moments in Hi-Fi Rush that I feel like an utter badass. And all of what I'm talking about is just the gameplay. That's all being backed up by the most creative animation I've ever seen in a video game, backed up with such a fun cast, such great voice acting, such great writing and jokes and just tone overall. Like this game, there's a million different things I can be like, it's like this and like this and like this and like this. And it's all things that I love. Like I never imagined I would be able to play something that feels like I'm playing through Scott Pilgrim. And the Scott Pilgrim video game's awesome. That doesn't feel like you're playing through Scott Pilgrim. Mm-hmm. This feels like you're playing through that graphic novel or specifically the movie where at any moment something can be like a fourth wall break and then just jump right back into something. And then it's 2D, it's 3D, it's like choppy animation. It's fully beautifully smooth animation. And it all just feels like it hits. But yeah, I am so impressed with this game.
Yeah, I was kind of mid on it when it came out. I think mainly the praise on social media kind of got my hopes a little too high, but I definitely didn't get to the point yet where it really opens up and gets great. And early on, I'm like 2 hours in, I'm like, it's okay. I just don't see like the game of the year praise that people are giving it. And then you unlock the parry, and then straight up, like you unlock the parry, and then you start fighting enemies that are a lot more follow the pattern base, and it feels fun to do, and it just keeps on getting better and better. And then you get to one of the boss fights later on that is just so much freaking fun when you are nailing it. You feel awesome doing it. I'd say for Hi-Fi Rush 2, let's work on the platforming a little bit, and we'll have like the perfect game ever. 'Cause I think the platform is kind of in this game.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
everything else is phenomenal.
Totally, and like I'm right there with you in the sense that like I really loved the game, but I would probably give it like when I first started playing, I was like, this is one of the best 3s I've ever played, and then it's turned into a 4. I don't think it ever hit a 5 for me, even at the end of the day. Like it's going to be very high on my list, but I do think like platforming is not fun. It's not the worst thing ever, but you are heavier than I'd like you to be, and sometimes you just move slower.
A lot of it is running to the beat that kind of holds you back.
Exactly.
Like they want you to run to the beat, and because of that, you are a little bit more lumbering. But I'm always doing the 3-2 just to kind of move forward more. But I think with how fun and fast paced the action is, I wish that there was a lot more grappling in the platforming.
Yes.
When you are
Totally with you.
I'm using the grapple all the time in combat, and I wish in the platforming you could kind of be zipping around a lot more than you actually do.
And I do feel this is such a weird criticism, but I stand by it 100%. The game is always at a hi-fi rush. So
Sure.
I rarely
Terrible.
it's always at a high that I rarely feel a rush. Put that on the fucking box. I feel like it's always just like turned up to 11, that it's very rare that you get a moment that feels better than the other moments. And I feel like in a lot of other games, there's like the one moment I can call and be like, that was so special, that was so special. This is just entire experience is special, which is great. But it's just like, I just feel like there was it lacked a bit of like and then this happened. And there's moments, boss fights that are incredible. And I do think that the last 3 chapters of this game are just like so well paced and so hype and so extra in the best ways. But things happen so quickly that you're kind of just like, okay, cool. The next cool thing, the next cool thing, the next cool thing. There's never a lull to make you go, holy crap. What we just did was incredibly cool.
I see what you're saying.
Yep.
Man, check out my review on IGN.com for Hi-Fi Rush. 9 out of 10. Amazing. I love that game, man. Chapter 8 was the moment when I put my controller on, I said, this fucking game, yo. That was the chapter that, I think I talked to you about this, Bless, but I don't know if I'm wrong of feeling this, but it felt like an ode to Persona 5.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
With the music in the background.
I literally I took the song, I sent it to Barrett, and I was like, dude, I thought this sounds like a Persona song.
Yes.
You took it straight out of Persona 5.
Yeah, because
In the setting. It all fits within that. And that's the thing I like about the game a lot, too, is that there's so many things in Hi-Fi. Every single thing feels like a reference to something that feels irreverent or reverent about what it's referencing, right? Like, there's a moment that is very Scott Pilgrim. There's a song that is from Scott Pilgrim.
Well, from the trailer of Scott Pilgrim.
Yes. Yeah, that's in there where I was like, oh, I know that. Where do I know this? I looked it up. I was like, Scott Pilgrim. All right, that's where I know that from. And yeah, like there are moments for me where I was like, this is dope as hell. And it wasn't just gameplay moments, right? It was also cutscene moments. It was one boss later on that has a transformation where I believe it's Beethoven that's playing, where he like transforms into like a giant wolf thing. And I saved that cutscene and I rewatched that cutscene like 8 times. I was like, this is fucking
so
sick as hell.
Yeah. It definitely does. It had those high highs for me.
Animation switch ups are phenomenal.
Yeah,
Going to the
man.
2D, 2D animation is really, really dope.
Some of the needle drops in there. I think chapter 10, when they play The Prodigy, if y'all know that song, Invaders Must Die, that is probably the most.
That's the Scott Pilgrim song, I think.
It is.
Oh, is that's okay? Yeah. So yeah, when they did that needle drop, I was like, oh shit.
Yeah. That moment on, that's what I'm talking about. I'm like, this game is just fucking awesome.
I felt invincible because I was so synced. That game has you so synced to the music that I am beating your ass to this song, and nothing feels better, to me at least, because as much as I love video game soundtracks and music, when you sync that to the actual gameplay, man, there's no better feeling than that.
And meaningful exploration, getting a bunch of extra little money things that then let you unlock abilities that make the game even cooler somehow.
And the cast of characters I absolutely love as well.
Fantastic.
Like every single one they introduce, I love the naming scheme. I like a good what's it called? A rogues gallery of villains, of bosses, right? Where like it reminds me of like a Metal Gear, where I'm like, all right, each of them have their own thing they're going on, right? It's not to that
No
level.
More Heroes.
No More Heroes. That's another good example. But yeah, like I love so much about this game. Like for me, it is a 5, but it's also a 5 where Hi-Fi Rush 2, I could see being better in multiple different ways.
6.
Oh, dude, Hi-Fi Rush 2 is going to be incredible. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think I played a game in a very long time that I'm like, oh, the next one is going to be an Uncharted 2, Assassin's Creed 2 type leap. And Hi-Fi Rush, I think that, like, without a doubt, it is going to be demonstrably better. Because, like, this was such a hit, and it worked for so many people that I think they're going to be like, all right, now let's have even more fun.
Yeah, there's no reason why they wouldn't do it again.
Like I've said it before, but I really want them to partner with like a well-known composer to like really hone it. Like I would love if they partnered with what's the name of the composer that did Jet Set back in the day? That dude or the Persona 5 composer. Like partner with a composer that can really hone in and really go hard with the soundtrack, because I really like the soundtrack they have, but I feel like you can even elevate it further if you find somebody to really like put effort into it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Closing out the show, I do want to talk about Metroid Prime Remastered just a little bit, because we haven't given enough love on this show, on any show on Kinda Funny, and that bothers me because Nintendo just shadow dropped one of the greatest games of all time, and now it's even better. Michael, you've been playing it. I've been playing it. What are your thoughts?
Still a 10 out of 10. And that's not just because of the rose-tinted glasses. This game is timeless. I say this about like a lot of the seminal RPGs of back in the day, that these games are timeless for their stories and their combat systems. But there's something about a GameCube game, the first person Metroid game. They fucking nailed it, like straight up, man. The exploration, the vibe, the atmosphere, the music, the tension. This game is sometimes a horror game. Like when you get the heat visor, that moment when you get the heat visor and all the power shuts down in that facility, and that's when you have like the Metroids coming at you. You got space pirates jumping from corners that you can't see and trying to escape. You just feel so vulnerable in so many moments in that game. Like the lore too. When you scan like the Chozo lore, when you scan the space pirate logs, that like we say, I mean, at least I feel like audio logs and like documents that you pick up are. They could be hit or miss very much, but Metroid Prime, the way they're so beautifully written and they just like fit the tone and they're very efficient. Like it's a couple lines that you read off of Space Pirate Log and you know exactly what was happening in that room that you're going. They were doing some fucking wild experiments and my mind is like, holy shit, these Space Pirate dudes were like doing some wild shit. Like there's one log where they mentioned that they're trying to emulate Samus's powers because they're trying to take you down. And they talk about the morph ball. It's like, yeah, we had 4 subjects that we tried to turn into a morph ball and their bodies came out completely mangled. Yeah, we're shutting down this project. We're not going to try that. I'm like, yo, that is fucking dark. But that's also fucking hilarious that they're trying to emulate my morph ball. And I'm just out there whooping their ass and like, oh, they're trying to be like me. But yeah, the exploration is just so well done. Like, oh, I take a mental note. When I get that power, I'll come back here. Ooh, I get a nice reward. I get missile capacity. Oh, I can open this new door. Wow, this is open to a whole nother section of this game. Just the way everything flows and how each region just has its own atmosphere. And when you walk into Fendrana Drifts and you just feel the snow and the music hitting you, it feels cold.
Yep.
Feels like I'm in no man's land.
It's immersive as all hell, man. And you said it, but like this being a GameCube game from 2002.
How does it look so good?
How the fuck did it look so good? And it looks better. You know, it looks better than it did. It controls better than it did. There's still some things that like don't hold up and weren't even that great then. Like the map, I do wish that they kind of changed that up. But I understand they're not going to change it up because that's what it was. But besides that, like all the things that we've praised for so many years about this game, whether it's the ambiance or the boss fights or like all those things, it was like, wow, we were right the entire time. And sometimes that's not the case going back to games where you're just like, oh man, I love it and it was great for what it was at the time. This game feels impossible. Like this, I can't believe that it exists. And having this refresher of playing through it, I'm just like, this is better than I remember it. Like this compared to other games, I'm like, it just was so ahead of its time that like games today aren't doing some of the things that this game does. And games do some things better for sure. But some of the aspects about this, I'm just like, holy shit. Playing through Metroid Dread last year or 2 years ago, whatever it was such a great experience for me because I love Metroid. I love those type of games. This is on a different level, man. Like this is just like, whoa, like they nailed so much about it. And even like it being the first 3D Metroid, the translation from 2D to 3D, you would have never known that. Like it just feels like, oh, this was built to be this. But the way that the camera seamlessly goes from first person with the visor that just looks cool as shit. Sometimes you get heads-up displays in games, in first-person games that like overly complicate stuff, and like you see through the visor. I'm like, I don't need to do all that. Like you're blocking my field of view. That's not the case here. It's just it adds to the experience every single time. And then you go into the morph ball and it goes to third person. You start rolling around, and it's seamless. You pop back up, you pop into first person, you get to a save station, camera zooms out, and it just feels right. And like, it feels like magic. I don't know how they make the entire experience feel so seamless and like you are Samus Aran and you are on this journey, you're on this planet alone, and it can be scary, it can be rewarding. There's just so much there. And like,
I thought her name was Metroid.
I thought her name was
so you three. None of you have beaten Metroid Prime before.
No. I started the remastered. Well, I've only played about an hour in, and so far I'm really into it. The sound design is the thing that stands out to me the most. Where this might be one of the coolest sounding games I've ever heard. I've not heard anything like this game before, right? Even since it came out on the GameCube, like I'm playing it in 2023. I'm like, this sounds so distinct, and I love every single piece of sound design so far in this game. So that's the thing that stood out to me. But yeah, going back to it, I've had moments before where I've played the first like 30 minutes or so, and so I've basically I've retreaded my steps since then, and like
This is Blessing remastered.
yeah, exactly right. Like this is the first hour remastered once again for me. But it's one I want to get back to. Right, I'm like in the middle of other reviews, but I want to get back to it because so far it seems really cool.
Andy, you planning on it?
I definitely need to get to it, and I will get to it because I know that it's probably going to be a top 10 by the end of the year, a contender.
It's gonna be. There you go.
Much
Straight
like
from Nintendo.
Ah,
You know what I'm
Jesus
talking about?
Christ. Much like
Give it
Dead
to 'em.
Space 1 Remake was for me, a game that I would have never expected to have been so into. I know this game will be there by the end of the year. I know I need to get into it, but yeah, everything on GameCube, just such a blind spot to me in my gaming history. I just had no experience with anything on GameCube. I only owned one that I bought twice. I bought an orange one, and then I bought a black one for Double Dash and Smash.
Yeah.
And that was our like Double Dash and Smash machine, and that's all it was. So like anything when it comes to Wind Waker, all that shit, just never played any of them. So I
You're
need
gonna eat one day, man. It's gonna
yeah,
be
I know
good.
I need to get into it,
I'm
and
in the
I
same exact
definitely will.
boat, where I didn't own a GameCube growing up, so that's how I missed Metroid Prime, and I even missed Melee, and like Smash is one of my favorite franchises, but I missed out on like the most iconic one possibly. But yeah, we should do like a GameCube month or a GameCube year.
Get into the cube.
The season of the cube.
Andy and Blessing got shrunken into a cube. They're in the
Give
GameCube.
it to me. Give it to me. give Blessing some instructions of him getting small.
Blessing, get into the cube. Blessing.
Oh, as Hank Pym.
Oh no.
Oh yeah.
We have to get as small as an ant, Scott. You can't really say the name Bless and have it sound like
I know.
it has to be a name with an ah, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
With an ah. Hey Scott.
But Greg, so I know your story infamously
Yeah.
is you
Watch
never
Kyle
played.
play the entire way through in college.
Are you excited
How's
to
Kyle
play
doing?
this now?
Great. Well, we'll get into that in a second. He's doing well. Kyle is okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he had open heart surgery in December. But
Oh.
he's pretty well.
Hey.
Yeah, one of the member of the club. Right? Yeah, no, I plan to. It's just that right now my Switch is an Octopath 2 machine. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all it does, and that's all it will do for quite some time, I imagine.
Another hit.
I thought you were gonna say my Switch is stuck in customs.
No. But when it's done, that'll be what I switch over to. Yeah.
I love it so much. But Andy, to your point about bringing up Dead Space, I can't believe that within the course of just a couple weeks, playing through Dead Space Remake and Metroid Prime Remake, and both of them just hitting as hard or remastered as hard as they do, where I'm like, oh man, these are some of my favorite gaming experiences ever, and they're better now, and they're both very similar in different ways. Where like playing through them, you're like, they are both. When I was playing Dead Space when we did our review, I was saying, I am surprised at how much of a Metroid this is. And now directly comparing it to Metroid Prime, I'm like, it definitely is, but there's something about Metroid that is different. Like it's a lot more of like a,
I just want to get those tunes, man.
oh, the tunes are good. Tunes are real good.
God,
man.
I love some spacey tunes.
Spacey tunes, yeah. Some of the way where when the music changes, like on the Talon Overworld, when it plays a second theme, I'm like, oh, something changed. More spooky. Oh man.
Michael, we're going to close this out.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us today. Where could people find you?
You can find me and all of my bullshit at Michael P. Higham on Twitter, and you can catch me on hella websites. I have a Crime Boss Raw Case City preview on Polygon, Yakuza Ishin review on GameSpot.com, which we talked about when I was on KFGD. You can catch me on MinMax talking about Yakuza Ishin again. We're doing a deepest dive with the boys and Sarah Pods, Leo Vader, and Jacob Geller. Doing deepest dive on Yakuza Ishin. What else? Hi-Fi Rush review on IGN. Check that out. I did that thing too. So yeah, I'm out here. Yeah, and of course, peep my full written preview of Final Fantasy XVI on arstechnica.com. Hit tech website, arstechnica.com.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Kev, you've been giving me a face. I don't know if you're just
Yeah,
fucking with me or if
making
you
a
got
face.
something
He's
to
just
say.
flicking off you.
He's just having fun.
Yeah.
I mean, I still don't know what you're doing, but yeah, cool.
Yeah, I was just doing the thing I do every like 2 months where I like roll out and give you the finger.
I get it. I missed the finger part. I just saw that. Yeah. I love you so much, Kev. Let us know in the comments below how
mic was
excited you are for Final Fantasy
There's a
16
fire.
and anything else you want to talk to us about. And more than anything, go watch The Blessing Show. Share it with your friends, please. We're trying to make this the #1 video of all time.
Oh my god! Wow. Over Charlie bit my
Love you
finger.
guys.
That's crazy.
Oh, peace.